Hey there, Ken Plume here. I'll keep this short and sweet. If you like a bit of a chat, and you'd like a bit of a chat to keep going, a donation would be wonderful in helping to pay for all these server and hosting costs that go into keeping this podcast available relatively free. It can be $1, it can be $5, it can be $5 million. Any little donation helps in helping to defray the massive costs associated, well, I mean, not massive, but the ridiculous, I'll stick with ridiculous cost associated with keeping a podcast going. So if you like it, you enjoyed it, if you've ever enjoyed it, you might enjoy it in the future, go to a site called fred.com/donate and donate whatever you feel like. That's it. Site called fred.com/donate, and there you go. Now on with the show. The following podcast is brought to you by a site called fred.com. Enjoy. I'm Ken Plume, and you're listening to A Bit of a Chat with me, Ken Plume. Well, Mr. Shearsmith, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you.
Hello. All right.
Can you hear me fine?
I can, yeah. Can you hear me?
I can perfectly.
Brilliant.
Well, I don't know if you got a chance to listen to some of the other episodes of the show, but it's pretty loose.
Yeah. I listened to your, a few. You've done a few with Ricky, haven't you, with Gervais?
Yes, all messes.
Yeah.
It's a lovingly adversarial relationship.
Yeah, I sensed that.
It's really the only way to talk to him.
Right.
So it's basically whatever happens in the conversation. You've been, it seems, endlessly busy. Is there any time you do have downtime?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny because I just arrived back on the TV again with projects that seem to have simply happened in that moment. But of course, there is the writing time. So this year, it began with The Widower and then Inside Number 9, which were both done about a year ago, a pair of them. So it suddenly appeared that I was really busy, but they were projects that were kind of waiting to be shown a long time after they were completed. So that was a weird, kind of fortunate accident that I seemed to be on the telly for about six or 7 weeks on the trot, which is quite interesting for me. It's like all or nothing. I'm not around for a while, but of course I'm sitting around writing. That's the other thing. These things that don't appear from nowhere. The writing is a huge effort in between them, actually the filming of it.
Well, has it gotten easier, the writing process, as the years have gone by?
I think weirdly, yes, it has. I mean, maybe that shouldn't be weird, but I think Steve and I have ironed out our kind of writing wars of attrition. We used to be very, we still do sit in silence a lot of the time whilst writing. That's a lot of it is just sitting, staring at a screen, not happy with a sentence. And then one of us will either come up with something or the other person will back down and the other person's way of saying it will be allowed into the script. But we've enjoyed more and more increasingly. Psychoville was quite a trial to write. That was quite difficult because it was all very labyrinthine with its stories, and trying to keep that narrative going over all the episodes was difficult, and spinning all the plates and trying to keep it interesting and having cliffhanger endings and, requiring your attention and your want to return. And Number 9 was much easier, I think. We just found them enjoyable.
It's almost like the way to do a long form sketch.
Yeah, they were. And it was very much, that was our idea, really. We just thought it would be great to just have a beginning, middle, and end. If we could just think of a very pithy, funny little story. And then we thought it wouldn't really matter what it was as far as it being a thing. I think commissioners get hung up on the idea of it being, the idea of an anthology series these days. It's very, risky in their eyes. They think you're not getting an audience to follow you because each week you're starting again. But
how are they going to properly label it in the Radio Times?
Exactly, yeah.
That's a form. That would require them to actually actively adjust it every week.
Exactly, yeah. I'm sure they just want to be able to brush off.
They just want to put comedy or drama.
I know. Well, that's the problem with our things. Our things are never... they're always new and different, hopefully, and are different enough from everything else that they fall through the cracks. You know, there's literally no... Psychoville was put in sitcom for the BAFTA categorization. It wasn't a sitcom, but it got put in that. I mean, Inside Number 9, I'm going to be curious to see what they do with it, because it can't. That is clear. That is definitely not a sitcom. That it can't happen to it. But it will have to go in comedy, and comedy encompasses panel shows. So we'll have Inside Number 9 alongside Have I Got News for You? Because the only other place it could go is entertainment, and it won't go in that.
It seems like it requires the creation of a brand new term.
Yeah, I think so. It should. I mean, it shouldn't be a bad thing that it's new and different. I remember when we did the League of Gentlemen, people were first of all scared of commissioning it because they said it's not like anything we've ever seen, and that's good, isn't it?
Yeah, you want to be surprised. I mean, it was interesting looking at some of the reviews of Inside Number 9.
Yeah.
Where some of the criticisms came from an expectation of what they thought it should be rather than taking it at face value.
Yeah.
Saying like, well, this wasn't that funny.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that one wasn't supposed to be particular laugh out loud as some of the other ones were.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it confused people, idiot people, because each week was a different tone completely and a different kind of way of making you laugh and making you cringe and making you, kind of involved in a story. And, there was very silly ones. The one with the silent episode was a complete, the ending was quite horrible, but generally it was a slapstick homage, when it was an experiment in whether we could do that kind of thing. And then we did much more psychological ones with the Tom and Jerry episode. So there were very different ones. What started to annoy me was the assumption on people's part that every ending would have a twist, and they became so enamored with the idea of the twist that when one, particularly the fourth episode, I think, didn't, it was written off as being a failure because they decided that these things are just about the twists. I even had someone tweet to me saying, I've seen a still photograph from the episode this week. I can't imagine what the twist is going to be. I was like, what are you talking about?
Again, it's going into with an expectation.
Yeah.
I think wasn't it on, I saw the criticism also for, was it the harrowing? It was the final episode that they were looking for.
Yeah. Absolutely. They were like, well, what's happened here? This is just terrible and non-ending. Nothing. What happened? I want to know what happened. It's like, well, it's clear what happened. She was tied to a chair in a bra and knickers, and the monster was coming toward her and was going to get her. Simple as that. You can fill in the gaps yourself. You don't need to have it spelled out. It was an awful, bleak ending, and that was the point of it, deliberate. But some people, because 1 week...
I figured they were going to run off to Blackpool together.
Well, that's right. Yeah, they did.
Oh, we can all create our own endings. Maybe that's it. Maybe the active engagement with the audience on Series 2 is to say, we've now left you with this ending. Go create your own sequel.
Absolutely.
You decide where it goes.
I know. Yeah, it's funny because I just, with entering into writing the second lot, it's curious because you can't really get bogged down in what I expect people will think of it. People seem to enjoy it. I mean, generally it had good response for, it's always a hard thing to return with something, anything that where people seem to have a sense of what it is the kind of thing you do. You can only really be.
Well, what is your sense of what the sense of that is?
Well, I think people think we're dark and sick and twisted, and I've not seen it in that. I never thought that we'd do things like that. I've always thought that does it a disservice, really. I think we're better than that. I think if we earn the right to get under people's skin, I think, by being quite judicious in where we place our horrors. And other times, we're very silly, and I think people miss that side of what we do as well. It's very silly, some of it.
And a definite sentimentality runs through it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. We do want you to feel, we really do. And that's part of us being actors rather than comedians. It's not. It's always been about the acting and about pulling people in and making you care. And then it all matters. All the stakes are raised, and it matters what happens to these characters. Even with League and Psychoville, with his quite grotesque characters, there was still a humanity to it and a heart. And I think that's hard. That's hard to write. It's easy, I think, to do total cruelty. And it's much harder to have things that are still funny, but with a heart.
I mean, have you two had disagreements over what direction a character should take? What their end game should be, what their final fate should be?
Yeah, we began to not fall out, but it annoyed me that people were so sympathetic toward Pauline in The League of Gentlemen and began to find Ross as the villain.
Which you played up to in the pantomime show.
Which in the end we played up to, yeah, and I kind of relate.
I never understood she is a monster.
I know, but people loved her for it and felt sorry for her and hated Ross. And it used to really get my goat that people were really...
Who was actually looking out for Mickey.
Yes, that's what he was trying to do, yeah. And it was like this... And, but it's funny because Steve always manages to inject some, I don't know, some pathos or humanity. Even Hare Lip had some kind of... And he was a monstrous pederast who people strangely felt sorry for.
But a monstrous pederast that was fully redeemed in the feature film.
Well, yes, exactly, yes, when he was self-aware. Which... Again, that film is I was speaking to Mark about it the other day, and we were saying how happy looking back on it now, I think it's cure its egg a little bit because we were trying to do so many things, but it's not a terrible film. I think it's an essay in the difficulty of doing a spin-off film. And maybe it's too clever by half. That's the thing. But I watched a bit of it the other day. I thought, this is actually funny. I like it. I wouldn't have been disappointed if I'd been a League of Gentlemen fan, but loads were.
I mean, it's certainly a treatise on sort of being, in some ways, defined by the success of your creations.
Yes, it was. That's exactly right. Yeah, and what do you do from there?
And that you can't satisfy. You can't even satisfy the characters.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and it was an examination of that very thing, and but regardless of it being that, it doesn't let you off the hook as far as people are concerned. It's just, they just want Hello Dave and Are You Local and all the things that, and we try to address that by the fact that they're become aware of their own catchphrases. But I just think it was, people just thought, well, you've thrown the baby out with the bathwater.
yeah. But they thought it was their way of putting a nail in the head.
Yeah.
Yes,
I read some things weirdly during that time. I remember now about it felt like we'd been disloyal to the characters, like we'd treated them unfairly or something. I can't quite remember what was leveled at us, but it wasn't.
But it's odd because the characters were triumphant. They eliminated you as creators.
Yes, yeah, we were the monsters. Yeah, we were the ones that were unlikable in it, especially me.
So at the end of the day, you lost as creators.
That's right, yeah. And they were lived in happily ever after in their haven. So there was heart to it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, you mustn't worry about trying to please people. It annoys me though, because I think obviously that we are right and we have every answer. But comedy is such a hateful business and no one has any right to disagree with your vision. But they do. I mean, people were like, I read these, people tweet. I mean, the other thing about people just allowing themselves to feel that they can tweet me and tell me that they think things are rubbish, and I just think, well, I don't seek you out as a plumber and tell you do terrible jobs when you're changing a tap.
Yeah, these are people that actually went ahead and hired you.
Yes, exactly.
Like if you don't like it, you can see what other people have said about my business.
Yeah,
if you don't think it's your cup of tea, don't call me up.
Yes, I know, yeah. But, I do get annoyed because it's only because I care, I'm passionate about my work and I will defend it. I think it's, it's not thrown together what we do. I look at some things, I think, God, how has that ended up on television? And it's loved. And I sometimes think we're shot to shoot ourselves in the foot because our stuff is it's deeply funny, I think. But maybe sometimes it's so funny, there's no laughter comes from it.
It's something you dwell on.
Yeah, it is. It stays with you. Yeah, it's like a terrible, traumatic experience.
Well, I mean, I recently rewatched them. Oh yeah, it's definitely trauma. Going back, and they hold up. I mean, there is a timelessness to the material.
Yeah. That's good. It does, doesn't it? I watched a bit of League the other day and I thought this is still, because it was such a strange place we created, a timeless, it doesn't feel like it's 90s or particularly set in a time. It just still is the thing it was. And I think that does hold up, and the detail is rich, and it gives you the opportunity to go back and look at it again. It doesn't feel kind of shabby. Because
it never felt situational. It always felt like it was about the characters.
Yeah. I think that's right, yeah. And it was driven by that and performance led and strong performances, I think, across the board. I mean, it's funny now to think that we were so scared of, when we first did it, and there was just the three of us playing all those characters, and we were really concerned that you wouldn't be able to watch it. It would become boring, that the three of us would just keep returning in these different guises. But it was a great relief to be able to watch it and think, oh, you really don't care. The three of us in the businessman scenes, and then the three of us in the job center, they're worlds apart. You don't worry that that's me again or that's Steve again. It's just, they were all really well defined and separate people. And that was a triumph in a way, because that was a big worry that we would not be able to pull that off.
I mean, when you came off the radio series and got the commission for the TV series, was there any outside pressure placed that, well, listen, you guys surely are going to have to fill out the cast a bit more?
No one ever suggested that we should do that. Early days of the League, before we even got on when we were only still doing it on the stage, a man came and talked to us about, I don't know who he was, but he came to see it and he said, right, you need a girl. And we were like, well, we play the girls. So we said we don't need a girl. But yeah, that was one piece of advice. It was like, it's you three and a girl. You've got to have a woman in the team, in the troupe. But we ignored it. But we were never told really how to do it. We didn't know how we were going to do it. We wondered whether or not, to begin with, that the whole thing would be filmed. The whole thing would be filmed in front of an audience, because we were so comfortable doing it in front of an audience, because that's all it'd ever been. The entire thing had grown in front of an audience, and we were so comfortable doing it, so we thought, well, this is it. It has to be in front of a live audience. But then when we suddenly began to think about what could be achieved filming it, we thought about Ken Loach and the grimness of that job centre, and how funny it would be that it was really real and looked like a documentary, but with Steve at the front of the room as a woman with a load of men, and just buying it as a thing. And we thought that's much better than kind of a heightened version that would still be funny, but it would be a slightly more pantomime filmed version of almost like the live stuff. And I think that might not have been as affecting, because it might have slightly let you off the hook, because it felt real. It felt like a documentary. So I think that was better, because it was more, you invested more in it being and them being real people and not kind of slightly too big for telly versions.
Well, I think that was almost the cleverness of Barbara as bridging material to give you a sense of place.
Yeah.
Within that first series.
That was a clever device for radio. I mean, she was created completely for the radio, so she could take us around hourly, around the town, and then it would just fitted that we could still kind of do it for the TV. And, it was only ever a linking device. It was just to not be a sketch show. That's all it was. It was, how can we just avoid just going from one sketch to another? And so we thought of a town, and we just inhabited all our sketches in the town. It's only ever, Royce and Vasey was just the sum of its parts with these characters, but it kind of became bigger than that and became had its own identity.
Well, why the change away from Spent, which it was in the radio show?
Yes, we thought it was just a little bit too literary, and we thought we could think of a better name, and it just suited it.
A bit too Dickensian?
Yeah, I think it was a bit too kind of a radio joke, we thought, and I think we thought we could get a better version of it. It was too self-aware, I think, with it being called Spent. But Spent is a good name for a town, but Royce and Vasey was funny, with it being Chubby Brown's real name as well. Who
eventually found his way into the show.
Yes, he did. That was a strange couple of days we had him.
only to meet a horrible end.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
When did you first all meet each other? I know it was in college, but who was the first one you met?
That's a good question. No one's ever asked me. I think it must have been Steve. and I didn't really know them at college. I was in the year below Steve and Mark, and they were like these fabled, funny men that was doing their own thing. Because the thing about Bretton Hall, where we went in West Yorkshire, was it was a terrible drama school. It was not very good at all, and it left you to your own devices, but that was the good thing about it. So because of that, you kind of flourished, if you were at all, into writing your own stuff and wanting to perform comedy, and I was doing it in my year, and Mark and Steve were doing it in their year. So they would put on these really funny kind of plays and skits. And they took a really horrible, savage show to the National Student Drama Festival in the year I was in the first year. They'd gone to this drama festival and caused like mayhem with this horrific play called Damage Your Children, which was about a game show where the parents were allowing their kids to be hurt for prizes. Increasingly worse and worse, really harrowing things, hammering nails into their hands. And it was all a real kind of quite on the nose, satirical look at, kind of The Price is Right and just these game shows, and the smiling plastic face of the host, played by Mark brilliantly. And, he's called Cheesy Plastic. And, it just got worse and worse. And in the end, it was like there was rapes and really nasty, but brilliant. I mean, really well done. And, it kind of caused ripples of uproar around it at that time. And I think they took it to Edinburgh even as well, and it had the same kind of effect there. And so they were doing all these amazing things, and I didn't really do anything with them until after we left college. And I think that was the success that was one of the secrets of why we managed to break away from that kind of college life that people kind of hold on to. If you stay around, we used to call them Bretton Ghosts, because there were people that couldn't leave. They'd left, but they were still around. They're still around West Yorkshire, trying to put on their own little plays and keeping going with one foot still in the world of the drama student at college. And it was like, well, you've gone now. It's our time. You go away now. But they couldn't let it go. And I think because we went away and had 5 years of our own experiences and then came back to write some sketches and do a show together, well after the Bretton years, it allowed us to kind of just exercise that. It felt like we were starting again afresh rather than just kind of trying to keep college life going, which was important, I think, because then we all had a little bit of life experience as well. And I just came back to do the poster for Death Warmed Up, which was another play that Mark and Steve had written together about these two hitmen that got a contract out they were given a contract to kill death. And it was really funny, and it was very well done. And Steve knew that I was really good at drawing, and I've always kind of loved art, and I kind of put it by the wayside when I started trying to acting, but I just, in the end, I did that. But he said, would I do the poster for Death Warmed Up? And I suddenly, out of the blue, he got in contact with me. And then through that, I was kind of back in contact with all of them. And then that time, Jeremy was around, because Mark got to know Jeremy at Leeds University. And then Gordon Anderson, who now directs Catherine Tate and is now TV director, he was the one that said, why don't you all do a show together and write some sketches? And I've got a slot in this festival I'm doing. It was called I Wish I'd Seen That. And he was putting together a load of shows that had been on the Fringe in London. And they were being remounted to show people like the best of the Fringe for a certain amount of time. And we were allowed an hour slot. It was as if we had been on, but we hadn't, but we just filled the slot. So we did some sketches. We'd kind of always written stuff. And Beneath was in that, and The Businessman was in that, and I think, and there was a funny, and Pauline, I think, was in that. So some really early stuff was used, and it just kind of...
Do you recall what the first sketch was you wrote as a group?
I think...
What was the first character to emerge?
Well, definitely, I was writing Pauline, and I was actually experiencing Pauline, because I was on the dole and I was going to a restart course, and I was literally Ross. So I was coming back and telling Steve about this woman. And I would always do it. And the strange thing was, and I think I've told this in other interviews, but that when we finally came to do Pauline, it was always me that was going to be Pauline, because I'd experienced her and I knew what she was, and I would always do it in the rehearsals. And then last minute, it was really odd. I just said to Steve, you should do Pauline. And we just swapped. And
So what do you think spurred that on? What was it that you saw that he would be
I
more
don't
right?
know. It's funny. I think maybe he just looked funnier in the glasses. Because when we were on stage, we used to have tuxedos, and it would be very kind of Oxbridge looking review show, but the one prop would depict the character. And Steve with these red glasses on was just, I think I bottled it. I don't know. I just felt I wasn't as good as Steve. So I just said, you should do it. And he did it. And it was, it was just felt suddenly right that way around. But very early shows were great. And it was, it felt like we should carry on. But I remember distinctly never ever thinking, we're doing this because we will eventually be on the telly doing it, and it's a career move. And I just remember only thinking in the moment, this is great, I love doing it. And we did that every step of the way. I don't remember going to Edinburgh thinking, if we conquer Edinburgh, there was no master plan. And I remember it just being really enjoyable, and we couldn't not do it. That was the thing. It was a very prolific time.
Well, what did you do out of Bretton Hall? I mean, when you finished college.
I left college in 1990. Stephen Mark left in 89. Seems like that's such a long time ago. And then I tried to be an actor in London for about 4 years, failing miserably. I did some TIE, Theatre and Education, which is a lot of where
Legs Akimbo.
Yeah, that just fueled that. And
what was your experience like doing that? I mean, how much of that was exaggerated, and how much of that was so ridiculous that you couldn't even bring it to the stage?
Well, I mean, a lot of Ollie Plimsolls was a real man that I did a lot of theatre and education with. And the incident in the first League of Gentlemen sketch with them, where he slightly starts to get annoyed and point the finger at the fact that Dave is leaving the group, or Phil, I can't remember which one it was now, and he's pretending it's all very brilliant and he's crowing about it, but he's really annoyed and bitter. That was really an actual event that happened to me when I was leaving the group because I was doing the League of Gentlemen to do the radio plays. So he was doing it, and Reece is going off to do Radio 4 play, and he's all very exciting, and it's all turning around for him, and he's got some success, so he's leaving us to carry on and fly the flag. And he was just literally did it to me.
So what are you thinking in that moment?
Oh, I'm just standing there having to smile and take it on the chin and just think, oh God, this is awful and awkward. Because there was no easy way of saying it. I can't come back. I've got Radio 4 series. But it was literally, oh God, I remember it so clearly that in tandem, I was on the course to have yet another restart because I'd been on the dole so long, and I would have to take a job that they would give me. It was like, your time is up. You keep telling us you're an actor, but you're not. You don't get any acting work. You're going to have to go and do, I don't know what, photocopying in an office or whatever it might have been that they would have got me. And literally, at that lowest ebb, we got the Radio 4 series in, and it was like, oh God. And I remember very clearly marching into the Dole office off the Holloway Road in London and telling them I could sign off. I'm going to be all right. So that was just
and
joyous.
They didn't believe you.
And they didn't believe me, and I was put in jail, and I got a fine. No, but the worst thing was that the irony of it was I did that, and then we eventually had the TV series. And I remember sat back for a week on the set of the restart course with like a Pauline in front of me. And it was as miserable as it had ever been.
That must have been one of the truly existential moments of your life.
Just go through it again. Yeah, I made myself go through it again. It was ridiculous. But anyway.
Well, it certainly came. Well, that's how you were able to deliver the method performance as Ross.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was completely fueled by the reality of it. But it was good to have got Ben Delac because he really added a lot to the look of the show, and he seemed to really get it as well. We wanted to be. I look at it now and I think, yes, it does feel like we filmed comedy differently. I think just as we came out, the Royal Family also came out as well, and that was very gritty and real and low key performances. But and you could argue ours simply were not that; they were so grotesque. But I think the filming of it, Ben Delac really filmed filmed it in a way that it allowed some air into it. You know, the first thing that commissioners, do when they watch it back, or the execs, they'll cut out any long, wide shots because they'll think, well, it's not funny. You can't just have a train driving across the horizon. But we fought to keep them in because we thought that would set it apart, make it feel a little bit more filmic.
Well, that restart room is cavernous.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's horrible. So we really wanted to kind of just keep those silences in and have that kind of, and then there was the big fight, of course, with the laughter track, which they, it wasn't laughter track. They played it in. We did some bits in front of an audience. The Dentons and the local shot were filmed in front of a live audience with 5 cameras and inserted afterwards. And all the other stuff we'd filmed on location was played during those recording nights to the audience, and they laughed on them. And that was our laughter. That's how laughter happens. It's not that it's canned at all, as you probably know, but people think it is. But I have so many people say to me, why did you put laughter on after, the first time I saw it, it didn't have laughter on, and you've added it. And we never did. It was always on it. We begged, of course, to not have it, but it was in the days when a comedy was not a comedy unless it was given a laughter all over it, regardless of the fact that it really didn't warrant it.
Well, it was nice that you won that battle with the third series.
Third series we did, yeah. And by then it didn't really matter. People were schooled in the fact that you don't have to have that, it's people had paved the way, with Royal Family and The Office and stuff. It was all very, it was silly and now, of course, it's come back again. It's like you need a laughter, and there's a snobbishness about, well, if they're not there laughing, then you've got yourself to blame because you can hear that it's failing. And it's come round the other way with Big and Funny. So the second series, Psychoville, was nearly not made because the BBC wanted Big and Funny. We didn't quite know what it meant, but that was what we were told.
And is that why the third series never happened?
Yeah, I think so. They didn't want it. We went in with ideas. We actually, the truth of what happened there was we went in not knowing what they wanted. We thought, is it a third series? We better be prepared if it is, because that's great. And we had ideas for what might happen. And then we just got sat down, and the controller of BBC Two, it was Janice Hadler, said, what next? And that was it. That was Psychoville done. Nail in the coffin. She doesn't want it. What next? So the what next was Inside Number 9. And that was the end of Psychoville. We'd have liked to have done maybe a one-off just to follow through. We had a good idea for the Silent Singer to come back in the third one. We were going to have, and we had a really funny thing with a kind of Rosemary's Baby with the baby that David Sowerbutts had with his girlfriend. It was like a demon baby. It was really good. It's such a shame because we were laughing our heads off.
Do you think it doesn't seem like anything truly needs to die. Do you think there's still some sort of chance that could happen?
Well, I don't know, but I don't know when we would. I suppose, yeah. It's just, it's doing it, isn't it? And deciding, right, then we will go back to Psychoville now. I don't know. It's just, my problem is, the older I get, is how dispiriting it is that our things are not watched by anybody. They're really well received, of course, and those that love it, but no one watches it, and the viewing figures go down and down each week. I think it's television now. I think you maybe shouldn't go by overnights and all the things that they tell you that are.
No, it's the viral effect of how these things spin out after the fact.
Yes, yeah, it is, yeah, and they've always had a life afterwards. I think it's amazing, really, to think that League and Psychoville and probably Inside Number 9 will feel like things that don't just come and go. I think they do stay around, and I think they grow, and they're pieces of work that you can't ignore. And I think that we really are proud of it. No
matter how the network tries to get people to ignore it.
Yes, however much they try and hide it and then slightly shy away from presenting it to the world. That's my problem with it. It's like, well, you've made it now. Tell people about it.
I find it surprising. There are so many people that, particularly the Legal Gentleman, let's say, has crossed outside of the UK. It has a healthy fan base worldwide. And how much of that fan base, considering I'm in the US and talking to you.
Yeah, true.
And, just talking to, the good friend of mine who was the editor-in-chief of The Onion, is a huge fan of it. And,
oh, yes. Yeah.
People love the thing. that don't know that Psychoville exists.
I know, yeah.
And that don't know Inside Number 9 exists.
I know.
So it's this word of mouth going, no, you should try this thing, no matter how difficult it is to get it. Through legal.
That's the thing. I remember when we'd done Psychoville, and people would stop me, and I would think it was about Psychoville because it was kind of on, and they'd go, "Oh my God, are you doing any more League?" And I said, "No, we've done Psychoville. What's that?" And no one knew it. Psychoville really passed people by, I think. It didn't help that it was on here in the summer, and it was kind of hidden away. And, it's just, I don't want to moan about it because they do make our things and they are made, but it's just.
I don't think it's moaning about it. I think it's acknowledging what the actual situation is in addition to it having been made.
Yes, exactly that. It is exactly that. And I'm not exaggerating for kind of grumpy effects. That is the truth of it. I think, it is. I mean, people would say to me, "Shut up, you've got a program made. That's amazing." And that is true, but I just wish more people would see it because I think people would laugh at it. I don't think it's as dark and as horrible as they like to think it is. And I think more people, if they knew about it, would be able to watch it and not be repulsed. Inside Number 9 was on at 10 o'clock at night because they had it pegged as something really dark and disturbing. And it really wasn't. For us, I think there was a lot of things in it that were not that bad, and it could easily have been on at 9 o'clock. But it's because it's scuppered by the fact that it's in the comedy slot. Because if it was a drama, there's far worse things on in dramas at 9 o'clock on TV. But that's because it's couched in the the role of being in a drama. So it's like, right, it's a drama. I'm ready. I'm steeled for whatever horrors might come my way because I know it's a drama. If it's a comedy and you're slipping in some, people, child abuse and things, it's suddenly it's apparently more deeply wounding because you've been wrong-footed. I say it's even more powerful because you're doing all sorts of things there and you're confusing people's expectations and pulling them in one direction and another, and far more superior and interesting than just a comedy. But the casualty of all that is that it has to be consigned to very late at night, so not to frighten too many people, and I just think it's a shame because I think 9 o'clock on BBC One, I'd like to see it happen and to see what happens. If you're told about a thing to watch, you just watch it.
Right.
I want them to point people in the direction of it and have the experiment of seeing if it still gets under 1 million by the episode 6. Fair enough, I'm wrong.
Or at the very least, make it more readily accessible outside of the airing on BBC One or BBC Two, or wherever it winds up. Make sure it's got an iTunes availability very quickly afterwards. Make sure it's digitally people can get a hold of it and watch it in whatever fashion that they most easily want to do so.
Yeah. It vanishes and then it really becomes really hard. I mean, maybe it's all adds to the currency of it being this oblique thing that you can't get your hands on, and it's more I don't know, but that's not the way to have people see it, is it? Hide it. It's like a game to try to find it.
Well, I mean, I was surprised to see that Inside Number 9 didn't get a Blu-ray release.
Yeah, I know.
And it's such a beautiful series.
Yeah, looked fabulous, was shot on HD. And then, but Ken, it was not even mooted to have a DVD release at all. We had to fight for it.
Really?
And it was like, no, we're not doing it. And we were like, what? We've always had our programs made on DVDs. They said there's no market for DVDs anymore.
And this one doesn't even have commentaries on, does it?
No.
Doesn't it just have basically the EPK?
It's literally
behind the
EPK.
scenes?
Yeah. We said, can we do a commentary? No, we can't afford to hire a room for you to do that.
So why don't you do guerrilla commentaries? That people can sync up to their copies, and that'll incentivize them to pick up the DVD that they can sync up the MP3s that you put out of audio commentaries.
Right. You're far more technically minded than me. But Steve did tell that to me, and I thought that would be a good idea. If we could easily do that. And it would be enjoyable because people actually, weirdly enough, they like our commentaries. They're very candid and funny. But they really, I was really shocked because they said there's no reason to do it anymore. No one gets them. No one buys them. And we're not doing one.
Well, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy when you don't put it out.
I know. And also, if that happens and DVDs are really on the way out, where is the place to get all your little extras and things? That just goes by the wayside with it, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I think that's
what you're suggesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's because the thing I found that was great about the League and the Psychoville Blu-rays, you buy those physical items for the bonus material.
Yeah.
Yes, you love the thing, but it pushes you over the edge to go, well, it's not just getting the programs that I've already seen. It's getting this whole master course and how this program was made.
Yeah, I know. And we've always cared so much about the way that what goes on the DVD. And Inside Number 9 was bungled because for a long time there wasn't going to be a DVD. And then suddenly there was, and it was just basically the program put onto a disc and put in a box, and we didn't have any say in it. And so I look at it now, and it's a tragedy to me that, it's literally white lettering Inside Number 9 and then select episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like, it's almost like it's like on Stone Age.
Might as well be watching a VHS tape.
Yes, it literally is like having a VHS tape. And that's terribly galling to me, because I would hate to think people think that it's us now not caring because we're old. It was that we were told there wasn't going to be one, and there just simply was one last minute. And we had nothing to do with it because it was rushed onto DVD. And then it was like, oh, will you do a DVD signing? And it was like, well, you said no one buys them.
Yeah, but we want you for promotion now. We did it. Aren't you happy? Aren't you happy? We did what you wanted. We put it out.
That's exactly what they said.
That's why you're so difficult.
You sound like everybody I meet.
Well, see, but here in this modern digital age, as creators, you don't have to just sit by. You can do stuff like do the commentaries yourself, or do a little featurette yourself.
Yeah.
You could sit down with a camera in front of you and record a discussion about it and throw it up on YouTube.
Yeah. I know, we should do it, yes. It would be, I'm sure some people would like it. I mean, then I start to think, yes, but I'm only doing it for 400 people. Nobody watches it. That's the problem. People saying to me, oh, it's such a shame this hasn't come back, and are you doing more? And it's like, yes, we are, but I'm slightly unenthused about it, because it's to what end? You've got to do it to have people watch it. Otherwise, what am I doing it for?
Well, maybe get a batch of the DVDs, when the price drops.
Yes.
And targeted, send them out to certain people who have, a larger social media following who would probably enjoy them.
Yeah.
That can then let people know that, hey, I just saw this great thing. Sort of this is a care package to let you know about this thing we made that you probably never heard about.
Yeah. Because can you imagine if people saw it? They'd be like, oh, wow, this is great, actually. Who's this person? Who are these people?
I mean, I think, that it exists. Now, the possibilities are unlimited as to what you can do to say, well, now how can we get this to a wider audience after the fact? Yeah.
Because, the Quiet Night In should be at festivals as a little one-off short. I'm sure it would win.
And it's really good. It still should be. I mean, how much even control do you have just to submit it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I literally never looked into it. I remember someone saying, I did a talk at the BFI, and someone there said that you should definitely submit that to festivals, and nothing ever came of it. But it would be lovely to see it, do the rounds, and because anyone.
Have you ever done conventions?
People would see it.
Have you ever gone out on the convention, like say like a Comic-Con or or a Dragon Con? Or...
I've never done it. I mean, I'm not in that world really. I mean, I kind of am if anyone thought about it, but no one has.
Well, I'm putting it forward.
Right.
The idea that, that's, you have a fan base there. I mean, that is the hyper aware culturally fan base that knows of you guys and your work.
Yeah.
That is right there and ready and waiting to find out what you're doing.
Yeah. I know, it's funny, isn't it? 'Cause people, I love it when I meet like-minded people that actually get it. And there are a lot of people that do get it. I'm talking like it's no one watches it. Of course, people do watch it, and I'm very pleased that they do, and they love it. And I wouldn't have it actually any other way. I wouldn't want to make anything that's average. It's that thing of it's always been a strong flavour, and people either like it or they don't. I think, and there's not really been a halfway house with it. It's not really something you can take or leave. You might not like it, but it's very sure of itself, and that's what gets us by, I think.
Yeah, I think it definitely makes you commit to it one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. And especially with like the number, I mean, it's weird, the number 9s, because I went to meal last night for a fundraising event for the Almeida Theatre. And I sat on this table with this woman, and she said, "So are you a writer now, are you predominantly?" I was like, "Well, I've done a few comedies." Didn't know I was. I've done a few comedies, and which ones? I said, "Oh, well, I did League of Gents. Yes, I remember that. Yes, and I said I did a thing on BBC Two recently this year. I'm writing another series of it now. What's it called?" I said it was called Inside Number 9. "Oh, I saw that. Oh, yes. That's good. That was good." The first one I wasn't sure. He thought, "Oh, I'm not sure about this," but you made him want to watch the next one, and at least it had that reaction with her. But I thought that's in that she was telling me the thing that it must have happened to a lot of people, where you'd watch one and then there was no reason other than the fact that it's mine and Steve's taste and tone. That's the thing that's across those 6 things, And despite the fact that the first one might not have appealed to you because it was about a man that gets revenge on it because of his child abuse, next one's very silly. But we chose not to show in the Quiet Night In as the number 1 because we thought it's not really that in itself. If that was just presented to you as an episode 1 of a new thing, it's quite hard going. I think might be good, but we thought let's just ease people in with something more obvious as a first thing. It's got a great cast. It's all quite talky, obviously, because it's all in the wardrobe. That's quite a nice little gimmick. But it was just intriguing to me that she stuck with it, because from everything that was telling me from what she was like, it was like she wouldn't have enjoyed it, but she apparently did.
Well, it'd be brilliant to actually see what, sort of a mini festival, if you were to run those back to back.
Yeah.
How they play. Would you adjust the viewing order if that was done as a 3-hour marathon?
I don't know. That's a good question. We spent a long time thinking about the order because we knew that would matter with as far as what would be reviewed first and what would be, and the fall off of people not watching by episode 4, whatever it might be. I think we thought we were right in the order. I think it was correct. I think it would have been episodes. I wouldn't have necessarily had it the Howling at the end, but the BBC made us have it at the end because they thought it was so horrible that no one might return to the program after it. Which is
that sets up a second series well.
I know. Yeah, brilliant. But I mean, perhaps you could have had it. We were a bit mindful of putting episode 3, the Tom and Jerry, near episode 5, the understudy, because we thought in some ways it's the same beats in a way. It's the rise and fall of somebody else at someone else's expense. So we tried to keep them apart a little bit. I don't think you would really think of it, or maybe you would, I don't know, but we thought if you look carefully, they're a bit similar. So we kind of kept them we kept one episode in the middle of those to split them up. But I think episode 4 suffered a little bit because I think it was a really good idea, and suddenly that was hated, the whole balloon episode. And I thought it was a really funny conceit as the beginning of a story. And it was just, what's happened here? Gone right off the wall. Terrible, terrible. And I thought it was really good.
Well, it was very evocative of the whole eBay collectible tete-a-tete.
Yes.
In Psychoville.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I just thought it looked good. I thought it was a nice feel to it because it felt very bright and like sitcom-y. And that was at the heart of it, there was something really horrible happening, which we thought was fun.
Well, it was a beautiful farce.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Wrapped up within that. You got that nice sort of rising escalation of absurdity.
Absolutely, yeah. We wanted to kind of get that, yeah. I mean, of course, it's hard doing these things because you set yourself up for putting them in the order of what's best and what's worst. I've had so many people tell me on Twitter and the order that, that's best, that's worst, that one's middle, that one's crap. And you just get 6 different things.
Well, you're on Twitter. They know that you must want to know. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, I only joined Twitter because of when Psychoville was coming out, there was no press for it. And I heard that if you go on this and you can say it's on at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night, people might actually be aware of me and go and watch it. But now, of course, it's like Steve would never do it.
I notice he's still not on social media.
No, he won't do any of it. No, it amuses him to look at my ramblings and the things people send to me, and that he gets his enjoyment from seeing how people are.
Has he ever come close to doing it?
No, I don't think so. I sometimes wonder whether he's secretly on it in the pseudonym, but what were the point of it? Because no one would talk to him, probably.
He's Ricky Gervais, isn't he?
Yeah.
Sussed.
Yeah.
I was curious that I've been talking about the evolution of the stories for number 9. I mean, Tom and Jerry goes back a ways, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. We wrote that probably in tandem with the earliest of the League sketches. We were writing that when we were in the flat in Highgate, sharing a house. And it was basically our lives. We were on the dole, and it was very allegorical. It was a play. We wanted to put it on as an actual play. And we wrote the part, and Steve was going to be there was a character in it called Stevie, who was the camp friend that actually ended up still in it with Connolly Hill playing him. And the dole boy, there was a great sequence where the dole boy, Stevie comes round and the Tom character's not there, and the dole boy kills the friend. He throws boiling water in his face. He's boiling a pan of sprouts on the oven, and it's all set to Les Mis. There's a lot of things mingled in this one sequence that we kind of just have mined from other things. The whole obsession with Les Mis that Steve has got, ended up singing it in Psychoville, but also the whole thing of the hot water in the face ended up in her lip. So a lot of the things that were in that first gestation of that piece about the dole boy have been cherry picked since.
Well, wasn't there a Pauline in there as well, or a version of that?
Yeah, there was a bit where he went to a restart course and Pauline was there, and there was a bit of Pauline. Yes, there was. You're right. So loads of things were in that play.
So why did it never go beyond that stage until obviously 20 years later?
Yeah, 20 years later. I don't know. It just never got made. We had a read through of it, I remember, and a real woman did Pauline, and it was terrible. Because she just did it like, right, good morning, job seekers. What we're going to do now? And it was like, oh, no, this isn't it. She just didn't get it how to do it. But of course, why would she? It was just written down as words. Because the funny thing about League writing, in fact, our writing, full stop, you look at it on the page, it's nothing funny about it. I don't think it reads funny. And it's all about how we do it. You know, we know how we're going to do it. We're reading it and saying it and acting it all the while we're writing it. So things are adjusting and amending to a performance level. You're sitting in front of the typewriter typing it. So a lot of the time, I remember it really not coming off the page, the whole of the Jeff, Mike and Brian sketch, the Mau Mau sketch. And it was really only ever in how you do it. It just looked like a very dry, relentless tale of a man trying to tell a joke and coming in and spoiling it. I think we submitted it to try and get it on some program very early on, and they were like, well, this is not funny. Doesn't read funny at all. And we were like, yes, but you have to see us do it. So it was interesting, that big gulf between the idea of just being able to submit something and it would just be, oh yeah, this is funny writing, and the idea of like, yes, but it has to be taken off the page with the way the people are going to do it. And that must be difficult, I think, because you can't trust just to look at the writing and think, I don't see that it's funny. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it was always intriguing to me that things were funnier done than read.
Well, I mean, how different was it writing for the stage show, making the transition of what to adapt to radio, and then obviously some of that material was adapted into the first series, but then you started to evolve that style and the kind of characters you introduced for the TV show when there was no consideration that this has to play on stage.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it was always intriguing on stage because we would love. It was kind of the purest it's been as far as us writing awkwardness and making the audience really feel uncomfortable and us enjoying that delicious kind of squirming of this is not funny anymore. It's horrible, actually. I'd quite like to get up out of my chair and leave this little theatre, and then allowing them all off the hook with a big laugh. And it was great and it was at its peak on stage above the pub in Maida Vale when we first were doing the Lee sketches, and we would do the Paulines and we'd do the Jeff at the best man speech was completely an exercise in that awkwardness. But it's Mike and Cheryl's day, and then it would be a big relief because it was funny again. But taking that to to the telly, that was enjoyable, but it felt like it slightly was hampered by the laughter on it, because you would get coughs and noises of the audience watching it. We were less in control of it because it was once removed from the event. It was filmed. Then an audience watched that film and they laughed at sometimes in the wrong places. And then the thing that then we kind of enjoyed doing was taking that initial joke and carrying on with it, taking them out of that initial sketch and keeping them alive in new situations, if that was possible. So, and that completely was the road we went down with Psychoville, with, the initial joke of Mr. Jelly being a horrible a children's entertainer that doesn't like children, and then taking him on that journey with his rival with Jolly. And it became more than just the first joke. I think the difference between us right from the start was that we didn't just do the same joke week in, week out, like the Fast Show doing the same catchphrase, or Little Britain kind of doing the same mechanics of and you knowing what you're going to get. You kind of knew what you're going to get the first time round. Then we very quickly dispensed with, let's not do that again. Let's try and do something else now. And sometimes you do shoot yourself in the foot, because people like a repetition. It's easy. It's the easy way of doing it.
Can you imagine Jelly as a stage character?
Yeah, I can. I think you could definitely come out and do a set, because it would all fit with what would be appealing about that would be that it would be like he was there in the room. So I could literally come out with my little table of magic tricks and present myself to the audience doing the thing he is there to do, which is do a magic show or a children's party, and get increasingly irate with the audience or whatever it might be. So he's suited to that. Some things are not suited to it. Like Bernice on stage was kind of agony aunt, and that never quite fitted because we were in a theatre, and you could just about get away with it and address the audience. But that was one of the strange things about the league. We were very well received, and we won the Edinburgh Festival Perrier Award for sketches. Then we would be taken out, and because we were the winners of the Perrier Award that year, we would be in other shows, and we would do a sketch. We'd do our fourth wall sketch among a lot of stand-ups, and we were the worst thing on the bill because everyone else, Al Murray came out and talked to the audience, and then we'd do our little thing where we all sit down in chairs and do a sketch. And
so what sketch would you pick out? What was the one?
We'd do the Mau Mau sketch, and we did that loads of times after winning the Perrier, and it would eventually always go down well, but with the adjustment of a man was just talking to me directly, telling me jokes, to what are they doing? They're just talking to each other. This is like a piece of theatre. Always didn't sit well on a bill where other people are coming in, talking to the audience, and then we come in and don't do it. We would get a halfway house where we'd get away with it when Steve would do Pauline. Because the first Pauline sketch, he'd come out and he'd talk to the audience like they were the job seekers. And that still worked.
Because it was like it was basically the public coming out.
Exactly that, yeah. And the sketch with Jeff doing his stand-up act and going badly wrong slowly but surely. I did that on stage years ago, and that in the guise of a different character. It was called Gaz Wood, and it was the same thing. It was because we'd seen it or we'd heard about a stand-up turning on the audience, and we thought that was a funny thing. So I came out and did the whole thing about Reliant robbing cars, and slowly but surely it dawns on him that no one's finding it funny, and you're a funny bunch, aren't you?
Anyway, have you ever done magic on stage before doing the league stuff? Did you ever do?
I've done
in front of an audience.
Only for kids.
So you did do kids parties?
Yeah, I've done the odd part. I've not turned up like, hello, I am the entertainment, but I've gone, right, okay, I'll go and get some things done.
You were in Mr. Jelly.
No, not Mr. Jelly. But the terrifying thing about that is they're completely, they don't let you off the hook. They if they see something, they just tell you, what's that? Where's it going? Is something going up your sleeve, mister? They're totally unforgiving. So that, coupled with someone who's only got one hand, is not good.
No. It was nice to see the evolution of pre-hand loss.
Yeah.
To post-hand loss.
That was enjoyable, yeah.
I mean, can you envision if you were to put together a one-man show, sort of a retrospective of all the characters you've played?
Right.
Who would you want to be in that lineup? Who would you love to do on stage, just in little set pieces?
That's a good question. I'd love to do some more Ollie. I always enjoyed doing Ollie Plimsolls. And, it would be nice to do Jelly. A bit of Jelly. And, I think you'd probably have to have Jeff, but I'm not quite sure how you'd get him there. One of the great things is if you can make it appear that the person is actually coming in. Ollie, of course, can be there, and he's presenting a play, or he's got another issue-based play for his season, so there's a way of getting him standing in front of an audience talking.
Would you put Jeff in the audience?
Yeah, you could have that, I suppose. Yeah, that might be a way of doing it. It'd be quite interesting to have him heckling.
Maybe from the balcony in his box seat?
Yeah. It's like the Muppets.
Yeah, exactly. Pre-show.
Yeah. Yes, that would be good. And it would be nice to do another Bernice. I used to really enjoy Bernice when she was the agony aunt, because we had a very funny one where she talked about because we based her on Denise Robertson, who was the agony aunt on This Morning with Richard and Judy, and she has written books as well. She's kind of a bit of a Barbara Cartland type character, and we added that into the mix with Bernice. So she would come out and she talked about, I thought it'd be interesting to let you know my. I have a lot of letters about Bernice. What do you do with your days? Well, I thought I'd let you know what happens. So I wake up early, 3 or 4 a.m. I make toilet, wash, and shave. Then I begin writing my books, for which I've won a prize. And she did this whole thing about her day, and then she read out some of her letters. And she'd get increasingly, and they'd start out really seemingly like they were going to be very sympathetic, and then just bitterly launch savagely into the person, and in the same way that she kind of does in the live show when we get Pam Austwick out, the overweight woman that she screams out that she's fat, and if you don't want it, you've got to stop eating and all that. So, and it was kind of, that was the repetition of that joke. She'd sit down, she'd read a letter out, and she said, "Now, I know." And she'd be very sensitive and then launch into something really horrible. And she was great to do on stage, because it was the bated breath waiting for, oh God, what's she going to say, would be delicious to kind of play. How long can I get away with it before I turn on what she, and the awful thing was what had been the actual thing. It was one thing about, I've had a letter from a lady who's had a terrible tragedy in her life of a cot death. We know this is a dreadful situation, but I have to say, if you'd have been a bit more vigilant." And he just launched into this, and it was awful. Some really bad things that we could never have done in telly. But that was fun to do. And it was very dark, yeah.
Well, it's interesting in how that character evolved over the course of the series.
Yeah, giving her then her sermons becoming quite literally sermons as the vicar,
and quite a sort of terrible end.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the whole thing inside the elephant. You mean?
Yes. With sort of when she'd had her redemption moment.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. In the Christmas special, certainly. Yeah. Carted off with Lazarus. Yeah.
I mean, there's how problematic, that certainly, there was a character that came post live shows, Papa Lazaro.
Yeah.
So when you're starting to create characters like that, I mean, what were the characters that when you started feeling sort of your oats with the TV show, when you really began writing for TV?
Yeah, well, it was funny. We went, having done the first series, we then went back and we hired some more nights in a theatre and began writing and performing it again on stage. We thought this was a great way of testing it all, and we adhered to it. So we wrote all that second series stuff came out of trying it out on stage. Hair Lip was written for the stage after first series, and he was performed on stage, and as well as Oh no, actually no. There's a bit of hair lip already in the Perrier award-winning show. So that was he was already kind
That's
of
the only way you personally refer to yourself.
Created. Yeah. But so then we Papa Lazaro was a new character wrote specifically for stage, to thinking we might put that in the actual show. And I think we did some more Dentons. And but really it was, I think Chinnery was completely written for telly.
He exists.
He had him in the radio. Yeah, he exists in the radio. He was completely written for radio. He was completely our old joke. And, we thought, well, let's have some funny sound effects for the animals being killed. So he was written, and then we never did bother with Ingleby. There was a little nod to him in the Papa Lazarus Circus. But, I'm thinking a lot of them were already created, but Lazarus was definitely one that was, and even then, though, I think there was a time when he was on stage, so it wasn't quite fully written just for telly. I'm trying to think what characters were.
But it seems, people have elevated that character. He was a one-off.
Yeah,
in series 2.
Yeah, he's one-off in series 2, and we brought him back for the Christmas special, and then back again for the end of the 3rd series, which we thought was all right. I mean, people then were like ruined. They take one idea that was quite good and they flog it into the ground. And I thought, oh, fucking give us a break. Come off it. We really don't do that, do we? The people do that, but we don't. So that's what annoyed me about that.
I think it belies when you can count on your fingers how many times he actually showed up.
Yeah, not very many.
Even in the film, he's barely in the film.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. No, we wanted people to think we'd copped out with the 3rd series and brought back our popular characters with Tubbs and Edward turning up again. And then we kicked them in the face with the fact that we killed them immediately with the train.
Did you...
That was a joke deliberately at the people that thought, oh, right, yeah, they're going to bring them back. But we didn't. And we thought that was good. But I think the people still thought that even that little bit was a cop-out, even though we were trying to do a joke with it.
You're just horrible people. Just have to accept that.
Whatever move we make.
Did you ever hear from the landlord that you partially based Lazar on?
Yeah, no, I didn't. It's funny. I mean, I live really near him, near the house still where we rented. Peter Papalazarou. I've never heard a single thing. I don't think he knew anything about it. I can't imagine that he does. I think I once got a letter from someone that says I now rent that house. And Peter Papalazarou is my landlord. But I don't think he knew. So
why did he only want to talk to Steve?
Because he didn't have any dealings with me during the whole process of getting into the flat and signing the lease and all that. It was like...
You were a non-entity to him.
I was a non-entity. I didn't exist. It was like a man came and he's renting this house and he's called Steve. I want to speak to Steve. Steve there. So it was just that. Whenever I spoke to him, he was like, who is this? Who are you? I'm Reece. I want to speak to Steve. Steve there. It was just that over and over on the phone with me.
And how long would you just keep it going to see how long he would do that?
As long as it took until he moved on with it. But he never would. I got a Hoover belonging to you. I got to bring it round for Steve. Well, Steve's not here. Can you talk to me? I'm renting the house as well. Want to speak to Steve.
It's good to know that people like that actually do exist in the world.
Absolutely, yeah. No exaggeration to it, apart from the blackface.
Which, it seems like you're the one who's continually stuck with the face makeup.
Yeah, I do get a lot of that. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I mean, especially with that and then doing jelly as well, which is full on clown. It's exhausting.
It seems to be a thing that Steve actively tries to avoid.
Yeah, he does. His face plays up. When he was doing Mr. Lomax, he had terrible skin trouble. His face was raw with all the latex.
What happened in Inside Number 9 in Tom and Jerry, didn't it?
Yes, he did, even on the beard on that. Yeah, he hated it. He was sat like a caged animal inside this mesh. He was like, I want to tear it off. I can't bear it. And then when I kind of became him with my big beard, I kind of understood. But yeah, he was ludicrous. He was like a mane.
Not nearly as big a moaner as him, though.
Yeah, no, it's nowhere near. No.
Well, do you miss doing the stage work?
Yeah, I do. We did these shows. on December 1st last year.
I was there. I saw the reunion.
Oh, wow, right, yeah. Well, and we loved it. I mean, it was such good fun to do it. And
you looked genuinely shocked by the positive response when you walked out.
Yeah. Well, as you now have gathered, I don't think anyone knows who we are or what we've done or has ever seen it.
You were given top billing for that.
I know. Well, that was news to us. We arrived thinking, well, we're on a bill with Rowan Atkinson and all these huge people. We're not going to be last. I literally thought I would be back home by 9:30. And it was like, you're not until the end. We were like, what? Why? And we had no idea. And we were all genuinely shocked that we were being stored up for the last thing. I mean, God knows why they thought we should be. But, I
mean, there was a lot of import put on the idea that this was a reunion of you guys.
Yeah, I know there was, wasn't there? Yeah. I mean, and that was interesting because I think the reaction to that and the interest shocked the BBC. They were like, oh, right, people like that, do they? They remember that. Because then very shortly after that reunion and that response and those Are You Getting Back Together, in the wake of the 50 years of the BBC 2 happening this year, they said, we got a message from the BBC, would you do a one-off League of Gentlemen? I mean, it was like with a week to go before it had to be delivered. And we were like, no. Of course not.
But we had a meeting. We all thought this would happen.
Yeah. A, there's no time now. And B, we're not doing it just because you've suddenly been alerted to the fact that anyone slightly cares about us still. So petulantly, we said no. But I'm glad we didn't do it because it wouldn't have been special. Because the Fast Show came back and goodness gracious me did. And they were fine. But we'd have been among that. There was a repeat of Inside Number 9 in the middle of those two new shows. And that was where the League of Gentlemen new thing would have been. So it was absolutely right to not do it. And if we are going to do something, we should do it in the 20-year anniversary, which is in 2019, if we're still alive.
I mean, there was never an acrimonious split amongst you all. That wasn't the reason that you all stopped doing League material.
Not at all. No. We just we'd done it for so long. We just thought, should we just have a break and let us revitalize ourselves? And we never went back to it. I don't know that they'd want more. I mean, I don't think they wanted a fourth series of League of Gentlemen. I think it was done.
Well, you did the film. Was the film a reaction to them not wanting another series, or was that always the idea that was the...
Did we do the film and then the third series?
Oh, you did the third series, then the film.
Oh, right, okay.
So it seemed like, a capper.
Yes, yeah. No, it wasn't... It wasn't in reaction really to it. I mean, I think thinking the way the things panned out, we should have, if we'd have thought about it, should have tried to do a film around the time of the second series. It felt possibly just slightly after the event. Because, I think I remember, people talking to me about the League being popular and liked. And I remember quite still in its heyday, standing at the back of a charity gig dressed as Papa Lazaro. I mean, it was have you seen it? It's a sketch, probably on YouTube, with me and Miranda Richardson.
Yeah.
That night, dressed as Lazaro, and people walking past me with pints in plastic cups going in and out of this big charity event, going, what are you? Who are you? And it was the most embarrassing, horrible thing. I thought, God, they don't know what it is or what I am. It was already an unknown quantity. Now, if I think I did Lazaro on stage somewhere, it would be, oh wow, he's doing that. Some people would know it, like the reaction on December the 1st. But when it was near the time when it existed, it was like no one knew what it was. So explain that.
Yeah, I mean, but there's always going to be the people that don't know what it is.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. You're very sage. It's like being in a psychiatrist's chair.
I think you underestimate the... and it's one of those things that you guys have been away for so long that you now occupy that sort of sweet spot of nostalgia.
Yeah, I know, that's true.
I mean, you've moved, and you even rightly, in a meta way, remarked on it on that December 1st show. You've moved into sort of that Python territory
yes,
of being part of the comedy firmament now. I mean, you all exist as this thing now in people's minds.
Yeah. And it's funny, it's bigger now than it was, and much more fondly remembered than it was, because I know I lived through it. But now it's kind of strangely grown. And
you preserve that mystery by not having done anything.
Yeah.
For the past few years. But that's together. But you've all done independent stuff. So you have now, I'm sure, people who fell in love with Psychoville who know nothing about League.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there will be that. And they'll rediscover it as a back canon. You know, it's odd for Mark to have all these girls looking at him dressed as a woman and going, "Oh my God, look at Mycroft." Because that's how they know him as. You know, they don't know him as Val Denton. It's like, what on earth is Mycroft doing?
Oh, it's another clever scheme on his part. Another way to outwit Sherlock.
Exactly, yes. It's all a plan.
Well, and you certainly branched out as well. I mean, you've done The Widower.
Yeah, I did that, yes. That was good. And
and we're tremendous in it, let me say.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah, no, that was great for me. I mean, that was a lovely thing to get it as an acting job. Because, well, I didn't know, you know, I thought I could do it, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to get the job, because it was an ITV thing. And I thought, well, I could do it, but it'll go to an ITV typeface, whatever that means, some bigger kind of commodity.
Do you have a fear of being typecast in certain roles because of League and Psychoville and generally the work you've done?
No, not really. I don't, because what I discovered in the wake of The Widower and having good response to that as far as me being an actor was that it was the first time in 20 years of doing it that apparently people had spotted I was an actor. Because I was getting reviews. Who is this? Oh my God, revelatory. He can act. It's like, what do you think I've been doing?
And you've certainly done an extensive amount of stage work as well.
Yeah, loads of stage. Yeah, and people often say, "Yeah, you really do any stage?" I said, "Well, if you know anything about me, I've done loads. I've done more than anybody. Not anybody, but like in the League. I've done a lot of theatre. I loved it. I love it, and I often would rather be doing that than filming. I think I do one for a long time, and then I crave the other, because I think I start to enjoy the kind of discipline of filming when I'm doing theatre, and then when I'm filming, I start to want to be free and want to be able to change it every night, like when I'm on stage.
Well, have you ever considered writing a stage piece for yourself?
Yes, Steve and I are often asked to do plays, and I was asked to write a play for the Royal Court. And I started doing it, and then I got waylaid because other things came up. But that I think could still happen. So I would still like to do something there. But I don't know what it would be. I'd have to think about what it was. I've got some ideas on the boil for it. But yeah, it would be good to do a theatre piece. You know, and whether it would be for me to be in it, I'm not sure. I've not any desire to write with me not being in the end thing. I'm different to Mark and Jeremy and Steve, who's written things and he's not in them. Because I got no interest. I couldn't imagine anything worse than the toil of writing it to no end, because you're not even going to be in it at the other end. I only enjoy the execution of it.
Well, and what is it about? I mean, when everyone sort of started going their separate ways, what is it that you feel kept you and Steve as a partnership?
I think it was just our desire to keep a kind of the League type of brand going. We enjoy writing dark stuff together, and I think we just wanted to carry on. It was like, how could we? This mustn't stop. It just seemed wrong that was the end of that, or a break from that. So we thought, well, we could just do something, and it felt like a natural next thing. Just like why would we? Now all think, right, the thing now we apparently all have to just do separate things. So we just thought of Psychoville, and it was kind of in response to the fact that it was us two only, that it became a much more kind of written narrative thing, because the problem with League was always that there were 4 different minds at work, and it was always hard to bring all that pooling of material back together, which is why it was always quite disparate and sketch show, really. But with Psychoville, it was more the possibility of just both of us looking at a chart and being able to kind of work on one big narrative. And that felt it might be easier to do that because there was only two of us doing it.
Well, how would you describe yours and everybody else's sensibilities if you were to try and encapsulate, let's say we'll start with Jeremy. How would you say, what characterizes a Jeremy piece?
Shame. Shaming of people and crippling embarrassment and a lot of humiliation. Jeremy wrote the pop sketches with Mark, but I think predominantly was Jeremy's idea, and it was that came completely out of Steve saying to Jeremy, "Will you write me a character?" And the pop came out of that. So that was what that was. And
how about Mark?
Mark was having been paired as a writing partnership with Jeremy in the league, would often end up writing lone, standalone monologue-y things, because that was the situation he was in with Jeremy. It wasn't that he was there writing something as a duologue. It would always be, I'll write this thing for me. So Les McQueen was a Mark and Jeremy thing, and Cave Guide, and Owen, the mortician. And me and Steve's stuff together was always stuff together. So we would write Tubbs and Edward, and Paulina Ross and Mickey, we did those. And Jeremy did Bernice for me. So it was kind of the dynamic kind of made us write in the kind of way that we wrote. It was odd the way that the dynamic of the characters was in the situation in the room writing it.
Did you find as far as the centerpiece character you would tend to write for yourself?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, we Steve and I did Mark and Jeremy did the Dentons. Me and Steve did the business.
There's a lot of shame in the Dentons.
Yeah, a lot of shame in the Dentons. It's a lot of masturbatory shame. And the businessman was written with me and Steve. So it was, I mean, it all felt just natural the way it all came about, but then the pooling of it and trying to keep it all as one big story was torturous to try and make it into anything other than just being disparate sketches. And we have to have the thing of the New Road or the Nosebleed as a backdrop to pull it all together. And what always made me was how much people loved that. That was nothing. That was literally the glue. And yet it was intriguing to people. That always surprised me, that people are like, well, what's going to happen when the New Road does come? Who cares? Just so that character can say in the butcher's shop and they can say it in the shop, and it apparently means they're all in the same place. And that's all it is.
But, I mean, you almost did. So was Series 3 a reaction to that? I mean, there's nothing as tightly woven together as what you wound up doing with 3. Yeah,
I know. I mean, that was an exercise in not doing the same again. We just thought, let's not do. People might just be getting a little bit too familiar with our trot round Royston Vasey, and we go here, we visit them, we see them, we go there. So we thought, let's just shake it up a bit and let's try slightly longer with a character, but then not be as simplistic as that, and let's have something intriguing. So there's a thing happening, and we arrive at that same event every week. And let's go back in time and see how all these 6 stories kind of get there. So we just tried to be interesting and new again in a different way. And some people liked it. I mean, now, in that way that time makes everything changes. And apparently the 3rd series of the League of Gentlemen is now the best. At the time, it was, what have they done? It's terrible. And I don't like Lance. And it's a whole half hour of him. So that episode is written off to me. And that was the danger. And we kind of was aware of it, but we didn't care, because we just thought, well, it's just not treading water.
Well, I'm curious, certainly it couldn't be done with the Denton sketches in the first series, but how those would play sans the laughter.
Yeah, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Because they were probably the broadest of the sketches, as well as the local shop, but they were in front of an audience, so they were big. The whole pissing scene is big. It's like you can sense that it's performed because there's an audience there. and that was always odd. That was odd to us that we were in the midst of this quite low key stuff, filming suddenly bigger. Just makes you bigger. It's that strange thing of where to pitch it as the actor. When you've got the audience in front of you, it's difficult. Especially when
you think it increases bad tendencies?
Yeah, I think you can't help but play to it. And it's slightly different performance than what you would have done had it been much more controlled, no audience, and single camera.
Or particularly when you look at the fact that you had done, say, the Mau Mau sketch on stage, and then in front of an audience for the radio recording.
Yeah. And then
have that as a pre-record.
Yeah, and then we film it in front of. I think the Mau Mau sketch in the League of Gentlemen TV show was in front of an audience as well, so that felt comfortable to us. But again, it was slightly hysterical because the audience is there watching it. It's just an odd casualty of doing some of it in front of an audience and some of it single camera. And I'm not sure it sits well. It's some of the local shop in the second series was. I think maybe in the second series, all of the local shop was single camera again, or some of it was. But there was a mixture of some of the local shop being in front of an audience and some of it being single camera. So it just heightens your level of performance, I think. It probably shouldn't. It's probably a fault of me not being able to just do it consistently. But you can't help but be lured in by their reaction if they're there.
Well, I mean, it plays to that you want them to enjoy.
Yeah,
what they're seeing in front of them. I mean, that's the sort of theatrical part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you felt all right to do that because they are such kind of extreme characters, those Tubbs and Edward. So it didn't feel so ridiculous to do it. But looking back, it is slightly big.
How often would the tape come off on the live?
Well, live show always. Especially in Edinburgh, when you're in this boiling hot little black box above Edinburgh, the Pleasance attic where we were at 5:20 every day in August was roast. It was I'm sure you wouldn't have been allowed.
And you're wearing full tuxedos.
Full tuxedos, just dripping wet.
Whose idea were the tuxedos?
It was ours right from the start. We thought we'd be called the League of Gentlemen, and everyone would think it was an Oxbridge posh review show, and then we would be doing these horrible little dark sketches with these weird characters, and it'd be very northern, and we would undercut all that. So it was a kind of joke on the audience, really. But we did get some people coming thinking it was exactly that, and then being really shocked by what it was. But yeah, we would be sweating, so the sellotape would never stick. I managed more than Steve. Steve would always fall down. A memory of when I close my eyes of him sweating, glistening with a headscarf and a flapping piece of sellotape just in front of his face. Still stuck on his nose, but not stuck on his forehead.
Yeah, I was surprised by how well it held up for the Drury Lane recording.
Yeah, it was fine. Yeah, we went back to the sellotape for those for doing those shows, and
always disturbing to see the stage version of Lazaro.
Yes, it is. Yeah, there's something. There's a third version of Lazaro in that, isn't there? Because he's got that weird black set mask, and my eyes just kind of rolling around behind it.
Yeah,
it's like a different. It was always going to be a problem how to do him on stage, but it kind of works from a distance. But it's odd when you see it close up. There's some kind of strange Phantom of Paradise.
There's something. Why has no one done a stage musical of Phantom of the Paradise?
Oh yeah, of course. It's crying out.
You would think it would be a given by now.
I said that for years about the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and then it was on and made, and it was on for years in the West End, and I never saw it.
Did you like doing musical theater? You did, one of the biggest shows in musical theater history.
Yeah, I know. I did. Producers for a year, and that was a killer. I mean, I was the fittest I'd been, but I was also the most completely decrepit with dance injuries. It's really hard work. It's a young man's game, and it's really tiring, and it takes over your life, really. You can't do anything, and you should have no family to do it. You should be in bed all day and then roll in at 6 o'clock. And that is, you really are. All the rest would be coming in, all the ensemble, all the young kids, going morning, and this would be at 5:20 or 6 o'clock in the evening. And they'd mean it when they said morning. They'd all just got up. And I'd been up since 7:30 taking my children to school. And then I'd do a show at night. So it was tiring. And Betty Blue Eyes was good fun, but it was slightly less taxing than Producers, but it's still really exhausting. So I did them both because of the part. I'd loved playing Leo Bloom, and Gilbert was a great part as well in that. So I enjoyed it, but I'm not a singer, and I'm not particularly enamored of musical theatre, but I just loved having the opportunity to do that.
But you do Phantom of the Paradise at the drop of a hat, right?
Yes, of course, yeah. Or
you'd play Swan, right?
Yes, of course, yeah. And I would do Young Frankenstein.
Which part? You do Frankenstein?
I played Frankenstein, yeah.
Seems to be a given. You'd have to.
Yeah, I would love to do it. So
I'd actually be curious to see you and Steve doing the Producers.
Right, yeah. Steve is Max.
I mean, I'm shocked he hasn't done musical theatre as much as he loves it.
Yeah, I know, it's weird. I mean, he can't sing at all, I think.
That's never stopped people before.
I know, yes, that's true. And he did do the Spelling Bee musical, and he was very funny in that, which is a very good musical, actually.
Maybe just the musical would have to be done in your neighborhood.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, yeah. I mean, Steve, less so than me, likes theatre. I think he gets bored of it. The repetition gets to him. So you would definitely never be able to do a musical because they sign you up for such a long time. You'd never agree to 6 months or a year. No, it's far too long. 3 months max, you can just about get through any piece of theatre, and you're starting to crave your nights again.
So how different is it doing, as opposed to a musical, doing something like Ghost Stories then?
Well, that was, Ghost Stories was fun to do. I enjoyed that. And by the end, I wasn't particularly, craving it finishing. I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed doing Absent Friends as well, the Alan Ayckbourn. And when that ended, it wasn't like, oh, thank God. It was like, I could have carried on doing this. It was fun. Ghost Stories was great because it was such a brilliant experience every night to just be at the helm of making them all jump and just watching it, literally seeing them all coming round from these massive scares and the laughter and the release and the tension. It was all the things that I love, It was great to be kind of the ringmaster of it.
Would you go back to it?
No, probably. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't. Yeah, I'd do a one-off as Professor Goodman. I loved it. I loved doing it. And I was so thrilled to be asked by Jeremy and Andy to do it because I'd been such a fan of it. And it was like I was suddenly in it. It felt like I'd fallen in to the looking glass. I was like, my God, I love this so much and now I'm doing it. But I was really only doing a version of Andy. Andy was brilliant at it. He was so convincing as a person on the stage, not in a play. That was what I thought was amazing. It was great. It was like you sit down in the theatre and it was just Andy. He was talking the way he does talk and he was so enthusiastic, and just by degrees it all fell apart. And I just kind of tried to emulate that really, and not make it like you were watching a play. One of the great tricks of it is that it appears that it's simply a lecture, and slowly you're drawn into this kind of these three stories in that kind of dead of night way.
Well, what do you think has been the character you've played that's closest to you?
The one in The Widower.
Which, to be fair, was supposed to be, he was a sociopath, but to outward appearances, he was a nice, amiable, likable guy.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean.
I want to clarify that for anyone listening to this.
Yeah. No, of course not. I'm not like Malcolm Webster. I think probably, Jeff is probably the closest to me. They're kind of very quickly getting angry at things and frustrated and impotent. That's a lot of what I'm like. But less so now. I think I'm a bit more placid in my older age. I try to simmer down quicker and not rise to things. And although, it's hard for me because I'm quite passionate about what I think and do. But I don't really have opinions. I know I'd let people say what they like. I'm quite, I think I am, a little bit more placid. I'm happier than a lot of people probably think I am. I think I play up a little bit to being the grumpy kind of miserablist, but I'm not really.
What was the most heated creative argument you can recall?
There was a lot of arguing about in the film. I remember having lots of discussions about how the worlds should be and how they should be filmed and how we want it. It never happened. I mean, it's a shame. One of the great things that we had always from the start with the film was that to really make each world just look different in the way they were filmed. So one on film, one really grainy, washed out. I don't know. We wanted real life to be really dull and then quite vivid in the TV bits, and then different again for the oldie worldy bit, with Half Heart and those characters. And it all plateaued into never really didn't come across in the way we wanted it to. If it had been possible to do some on different film stock or something, we were just, we fought for the stop motion animation, which we got, which was great. I'm very happy that's in, because that would have easily been CG if we'd have not fought for it. We didn't get paid on the film.
Really?
We forfeited our fees so that we could have the giraffe. It was like, do you want to be paid or do you want the giraffe? So we did that.
At least you had an anecdotal trade-off.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You can carry that with you for life.
Can tell you that now, yes, and it's on the tip of my tongue to tell anyone about that.
Well, the way the computer technology is today, though, you could take that, someone could rip that film off their DVD, pull it into their computer suite, and digital color correct it, and have it look the way you were discussing.
Yeah, they could, couldn't they?
You can create that after the fact.
Yeah. Well, that would be brilliant, actually, because I think it will really give it something else and also help with, I mean, not that it's not confusing, but it would just kind of highlight that moment when they go from when they're in the church in Vasey and then they come out in the church in the real world. We wanted that to be such a different, like, oh my God, where are we now? But it just didn't quite hit the mark. But you're absolutely right. You could do it now.
So we're throwing the gauntlet down.
Yeah.
Anyone listening. So just to be clear, you want the real world stuff to be washed out.
Yeah. And the Vasey stuff to be, if it's possible, to be like telly, which would make it maybe like videotape. I'm not sure. The Royston Vasey on our.
You want them to have, so looking like Series 3?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I think, just have a play with it, whoever you are that's daring to do it. And then
You're looking
the film.
For Hammer horror for the.
Yeah, we wanted it kind of, the real world to be the kind of most miserable looking. Then Vasey's is telly, and then the sumptuous kind of David Lean for the, for all the stuff in,
So the 1950s, 60s CinemaScope?
Yeah, that kind of thing for, Half Heart and Sheet Lightning stuff.
I think someone's going to do that.
Someone's going to do that. I can't wait.
And then we'll have
the film will be complete.
Finally, you'll be happy.
No, never.
Took 10 years, but finally, happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is the plan right now? I mean, are you in the middle of writing?
Yeah,
series?
I'm doing a bit of writing on the second one before Steve's filming at the minute. He films until the end of this month, and then we're going to get together properly and begin writing them.
Is he doing Benidorm right now?
He's doing, he's written an adaptation for the BBC of Map and Lucia, the
Really?
E.F. Benson novels, yeah. And he's filming them now. With Mark, in fact, Mark's in it. And Miranda Richardson and Anna Chancellor are Map and Lucia. And Steve is playing Georgie, the part that was played by Nigel Hawthorne in the 80s version. And Mark is playing Major Benji. So I think they're having a whale of a time in Rye, which is where they're filming it.
I'm sure they keep sending you lovely text messages and photos.
Yeah, he's exactly that. I asked him how it was going today, and he said it's fine.
Oh, well. I mean, that's a kind of enthusiasm.
Yeah. So
how far along is Series 2?
Well, we've got definitely 4 of the stories, and one of them is partially written, and the others are the bare bones of what they'll be. So not that into them, but knowing the ideas is a lot of it. And once you've got that, then it's relatively easy to boil it down into how many scenes do you need to tell that story succinctly, and then can it still be funny? That's the order of events, the ingredients, the magic ingredients.
And just out of curiosity, as a what if, certainly, You know, since these are standalone pieces.
Yeah.
Theoretically, could one of those standalone pieces actually involve, say, characters you love from Psychoville?
I'm not sure. I think it's it would be wrong to do it, because then it's just like Psychoville, and it's not inside number 9. I mean, there was do you know what? There was a point in which the understudy was written, and it was Maureen and David. And David was in an Amdram group, and they were putting on Macbeth. And it was Maureen telling him he should be Macbeth, and we should kill the actual Macbeth. And then we wrote it with those characters, thinking it would be a nice hark back to Psychoville. And then we changed it all, because we thought, it shouldn't be Amdram because the stakes not high enough, and it should be an actual theatrical production on the West End, and then the stakes are very high for the understudy that gets the part of and goes on as the lead that night. So we changed it all. But yeah, for a time it was going to be a version where it was those two.
Well, and that episode went through a lot of changes, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. And because then it was them, and then it was just an Amdram group with a lot of funny characters being, normal people. Because, we're always very mindful of doing anything too theatrical and too in. We love it. I would write everything like it, but it's, you've got to be careful to think it's not too knowing and too kind of, I don't know, not accessible. So we thought if we make them just people, then in an Amdram group, then it would be acceptable to do it. But then we thought, no, it's not right. It should be actual actors, because then it matters what happens to the understudy. So yeah, it did go through a lot of changes. It was the most difficult one to get right, I think. I don't know whether we did in the end, but I liked the fact that we kind of hid the dresser as the baddie, as the actual kind of person orchestrating it. It was funny because Rosie didn't get any close-ups in all of it until the very end, because we just wanted to kind of to have it pass you by that she was kind of even there. And it's such a few times I remember thinking very carefully about how it might be perceived that we were ignoring her, and I thought that's wrong. We shouldn't, because people will cotton on. So I said, don't completely ignore her, because people will think, oh, right, she's got something to do with it, because they're actively not letting you see this person. So I tried to think in every possible way of the second guessing of what's going on. And certainly the second series is going to be harder, because everyone was going to be doing it, because the twists are so important.
Oh, well, it's absolutely vital. What
is it without them?
Yeah, nothing. Might as well call it inside number 10.
Yes.
I mean, is there anything creatively that becomes more uncomfortable for you to write? Any topics, or because there was an interesting part in the discussion that you and Steve had on the Psychoville Series 2 commentaries, about you being uncomfortable with Maureen's cancer.
Yes, I was, I didn't like it. I didn't want to be playing it. I had that with The Widower as well, a man faking cancer. It's horrible. I don't know, I was a bit squeamish about it, and I think I just generally am as well. I mean, doing something horrible with the children, all that didn't quite strike me as being anything to avoid with the revelations in Sardines. But
do you think that was because in Sardines you ultimately allowed a bit of revenge on that?
Yeah, possibly.
That there was a payoff for raising the stakes to that level. Yeah,
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, we were very careful about that. We wanted it to not be a frivolous choice to do it, and that I think it was odd, because that again was written really. All it was a joke about the whole thing was just. This is quite a funny episode, because it's just 12 people slowly but surely filling up a wardrobe, and none of the uncomfortable bits that eventually made it in to, the whole thing of something terrible has happened and we don't know what it is yet, but it's coming out. That was all literally put in after the event, after a version of it was written with just the funnies. And then it was like, right, now we've thought of the thing of the child abuse. Let's go back and seed all of that and put in some moments, and it will build to that ending. And we put it in after a version that was just light, really. But when we handed it in, and I think it was John Plowan said it's fine, but can just a bit nothingy. It's just funny. And we were like, well, that's what you wanted. That's what you're telling us always to give you, not something horrible. Why does it always have to be horrible, you always tell us? Then when it's not, you think it's lacking. And that was really interesting to us, that we thought, God, we try to do it, but it's not good enough. It's like it's missing something from us.
So essentially it was a backhanded endorsement of you two just do what you want to do.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. You always see the positive, but yeah, it's true. Because then in the end, it was better for it. And we made it into something else was going on other than simply being, they've thought of this conceit and that it's just played out. So it was better for that. And those awkward moments and that kind of revelation was quite shocking, I think. I read somewhere that it was the most obvious thing that anyone had ever seen. I thought, how could you possibly think that that's obvious? Because it's just, there's nothing in it that would give you the...
Yeah, I think they probably watch episodes of Doctor Who thinking the same thing.
Yeah. I think they objected to it all coming out so late, so it didn't really count. It was like, well, that's not a twist ending, because why would anyone... We weren't told any of those things. None of those things were in there for us to find. Yes, I'm sorry, that's the way we wrote it. Move on.
They never will.
No, they'll never will.
But they'll still watch it.
Yeah, they'll still watch it and they'll still comment.
So at the end of the day...
They're allowed.
Yeah, that's all that matters. I mean, at what point do you want to be filming the second series? What's your best case scenario?
I think middle of November.
So airing basically in the same sort of time period next year?
Yeah, that's exactly what the thought was, yeah. We would be able to get them finished, probably to be on in end of February, March.
And that's around the time you'll be filming the League of Gentlemen reunion, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes, definitely happening.
And people, they're going to hound you now to the end of your days.
I know.
Asking for it.
Any more League? No, we've done these other things. Doesn't count.
It's going to be the constant refrain.
I know. Well, it's funny because I think we've done things better than the League since, but it'll always be the League will be the thing, won't it? Because that's the thing that
that's the first love.
Discovered, yeah, the first love, yeah.
But
never get away from that.
But there's still plenty of people that haven't discovered Psychoville and Inside Number 9 and should.
Yeah, true.
So maybe that's it. Maybe it's just building an awareness campaign for the stuff that already exists.
Yeah. That's good. You've set me thinking about the fact that it doesn't mean it's the end. It exists for people to find. Yeah,
it's just reminding people it's out there. Finding different ways to get it out there. Maybe there's something to be said for doing sort of a mini publicity tour, or finding out maybe through non-BBC sources who else could license it in, say, the US for a home video release.
Yeah.
If they're not interested in putting it out, they've certainly partnered with other companies in the past.
Yeah. It'd be interesting because, Inside Number 9 has gone the same way as Psychoville. It's been on FearNet, which is a cable thing. I don't know what it is, but that's where it's gone. And I think they've all been on now. Yeah, they came and went.
Yeah, I think and that's the other problem with it. It's just going to go and disappear.
Yeah.
Are they available on iTunes in the US? Or even iTunes at all?
I don't know. Do you know what? I don't no idea. I don't think they are. I've never had any emails saying, oh, by the way, it's on iTunes now. Do you want to tell anyone about it?
Well,
although why would they? But then I'm not. Yeah, and I don't think I think it's not.
Well,
it was on iPlayer for a bit and then went.
Looks like it's available on the UK store, but not the US store.
It is right.
So maybe there's a question to be asked of, hey, what will it take to make these things available in the US?
Yeah.
Because then you can actively encourage people, short of, non-traditional means.
Yeah.
Seek these things out.
Yeah, definitely. And they are available. You can get them now.
To build an audience. But, I would encourage, if you guys are so inclined to do sort of those guerrilla commentaries.
Yeah.
Put them out as podcasts and people... encourage them to pick up the DVDs or whatever. Watch the show at the very least.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a good thought. I have literally never thought of it of pursuing the idea of more people seeking it out and finding it. It was like, I've got it in my mind. There's a one chance element of it's on and then it's gone. But that's not the case, is it?
That's what the network wants you to think.
Yes, I know.
That's how they keep you down.
Yes, exactly.
You can't let them be the Pauline to you.
I know. Literally am. I'm like Mickey trapped in the room, not daring to leave.
Yeah.
Keeping the status quo.
You think you can't get a job? You can't let people see the program? Sit back down.
Yeah.
You fool. You think they want to see your program? You're an idiot.
Yeah. No, you've parted the veil.
Well, hopefully we'll see that I've done my work.
Yeah.
This is why I do these bit of a chats.
I know, it's good. Thank God I've done this thing.
Well, the door remains open if you ever want to do another one in the future.
Yeah, of course. I would love to.
And,
not too boring. I think all I've done is ramble and rant.
But that's a bit of a chat.
Yeah, of course it is.
It's been a back and forth. I think I've rambled and ranted.
Yeah, well, that's good. No, it's been lovely to speak to you. I'm glad we finally were able to arrange it.
I'm sorry it took so long, but it's good that you're busy.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
And if Steve would ever like to do it, the door is open to him as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure he would, yeah. I'll tell him.
We'll talk about beards and makeup exclusively.
Yes, I'll tell him, yeah. He'll be primed for that.
Both in his wheelhouse. Well, it's getting late for you, so why don't we just agree to talk again at some point and keep me apprised if you need any help getting the word out.
I will, yeah. Thank you, Ken. That's great. And I shall take you up on speaking again when I have something else to say.
Well, it's been a pleasure and a joy, and I will talk to you soon.
Brilliant. All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Reece. Bye.
Bye-bye.